What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another video. I know it's been a while. This is MDZ Automotive, and I'm here underneath my truck because it sounded like I have an exhaust leak. So I go to check underneath the truck, and I have this. My muffler and the pipe connecting to the muffler completely disconnected from the rest of the exhaust pipe, so it used to go up like that. So yeah, so I'm just gonna cut my muffler out and straight pipe it. So this video will be how to straight pipe your Tahoe. So before I start on anything, I'm going to spray my nuts and bolts here with some PB blaster to get them loosened up and just let it sit overnight. And remember to always wear safety glasses. You don't want any crap or rust falling on you in your eyes. Alright guys, so the video got cut off right there in the end, or I forgot to press record or whatever. So I'm going to attempt to loosen these nuts right here. That is size 15 millimeter on both sides, and on the back side there's no need to hold it with a wrench or another socket because it's just flat. So I sprayed them with that nut blaster earlier, and it's been sitting there for a while, so I'm going to attempt to break them loose. Alright, so it feels like it's giving way. Fuck. Yeah, that broke off. Son of a bitch. Well, it's one way to get it off. Yeah, that I'm not sure if the camera's getting that, but that broke clean right off. And that one broke off too. Well, alright guys, so I got my muffler off, and like I said, the studs just broke clean right off. I mean, they were so rusted, there's no way in hell that bolt was gonna screw off anyway. So right there, I'm just gonna have to push those through the backside with a hammer. Just tap it. And one thing that I failed to mention was that my muffler here is a Flowmaster 40 series. That's why it's a little smaller. But if you have a stock muffler, it's gonna be like twice as long as that. Regardless of the kind of muffler you have, if you're gonna straight pipe, you're still gonna need pipe to compensate for all of that across. So yeah, starting from there all the way up through here, and to connect over there to the backside. And one thing that I should mention is that you may want to get a wire brush and clean that up in there, and over there grind that down to bare metal so you have a clean mating surface when you go to weld. So yeah, now I gotta do is get some exhaust pipe and weld it right on there. Okay guys, so I got my old muffler up and out from underneath my truck, and that is just going straight to the scrapyard. But before I do that, I'm actually going to cut this part right here so that I can attach my straight pipe directly to the rest of the exhaust. So I got this tailpipe cutter right here, which will give me a clean cut without having to use power tools that leave burrs. So let's get this cutting started.
Oh shit. It's all over again. What the hell, man? Did it even cut?
Yeah, it's cut.
Damn, man. I saw something.
What's up? Flex pipe.
What the fuck? Why did GM do that? Is that like a hybrid shit type of shit?
This?
Yeah.
It's just a flex pipe.
What does it do?
It flexes, bro.
Oh, because it's like that, right?
Yeah, it's not a straight tube.
You can take it to the yellow shop. Dude.
Alright guys, took me longer than expected, but here's my piece. Now I just gotta clean that up and grind it out to bare metal so that I can weld it onto the new exhaust pipe. Before I head out for this exhaust pipe to put in for the straight pipe, you know I gotta do a cold start. I'm just curious to hear what it sounds like. So we'll get this as close as possible. Alright guys, that was my no muffler, no resonator cold start. Doesn't sound bad. I like the sound of it. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. So now I'm off to the auto parts store to get this pipe. So you guys remember when my studs broke off along with the bolt attached to it? So one trick that I found was how to remove those, because you can beat on this with the hammer all you want, but if it's really rusted on there, it's not going to budge. With the sledgehammer, so what I did is I took a drill to the center of the stud right there so that I can get a pick and a punch in there and beat it out that way. Because what happens is when you use your sledgehammer, you're using the whole surface area of the sledgehammer to beat on that, which is fine, but you get a punch like this with a point, you are reducing the surface area of the force that hits that bolt directly onto that point, which will allow you to apply more force to that stud. So let's get, I don't know if that makes sense, but let's give this a try. So you just need to drill there deep enough to be able to get your punch in there so it doesn't slip off when you're hitting it. Okay YouTube, so this is kind of how my setup is going to look like underneath the truck. Remember, we got our stock connector that connects to the front of the exhaust that I welded onto 18-inch piece of pipe, 2.5-inch diameter, with our 2 connecting bolts. And then I got a flex connector here that I'm gonna have to stay still. That I'm gonna bend to be able to fit or connect to the end, to the rear end, connected by a clamp. Don't need to weld that. Oh, and I have a coupler here so that I welded onto so that I can connect this to this part. And also got a head start and went ahead and welded this to that. So that's gonna be held on by a clamp. And then more pipe right here. I'm still gonna cut this depending on how much more I need to reach to the rear end of the exhaust. And then another clamp right here. And then a connecting piece at the end. Coupler, sorry. And underneath the truck, you want to make sure that you clean up as much as possible. You want to have a good clean mating surface. Don't mind that hole right there. I had to drill a hole below the stud because it was so bonded on there with all that rust to be able to make it, to be able to break it loose. And then over here, connecting to that, still gotta clean that up a bit. So yeah, let's get to it. Alright guys, so I hope you guys can hear me. The wind's pretty strong out here. And I'm just about ready to start connecting some of my parts partially. I went ahead and sprayed a couple light coats of high heat primer on this just to prevent some rust. Anything that'll help. It doesn't have to be perfect, just a few light coats is good enough. So we get our bolts. So you want to get these hand tying as much as possible, but you gotta do it both evenly at the same time. You tighten one side a little bit, and then you tighten the other side a little bit so that it's seated evenly instead of a little cockeyed. And you can actually see a gap. Where's my phone? You can actually see the gap there. See how that there's more gap on this side than there is on the other side. So I'm gonna have to loosen this side up so I can get an even gap. Okay, so that gap is a little better. So now it's all a matter of just tightening one side a couple turns and then tightening the other side a couple turns until you're tightened down, and that should give you a nice even gap. Take a look at your gap every now and then to make sure you're still even. Alright, shit, my tripod broke again. So there we are. Nice even gap. Alright, and then here we come with our flex connector. And just put it like that, and notice how this will meet up with that end over there, and that's where the flex connector comes into play. So you're supposed to be able to just bend this to your will to a certain degree. So we're gonna do that. And like that. And that's a little bit more better going towards that end over there. So I'm just going to lightly clamp this down to hold it in place. Shit, why am I going in, man? And just to hold it in place, we can always go back and readjust accordingly. Alright, that's a little better. So now you take your coupler, and this coupler is going to go into here, and then the other piece of pipe, measured of course, connecting that, and that should be it. So this piece of pipe is more than enough to cover that gap that we got. So come in like this, and then measure where we're going to cut. Always make sure you leave enough pipe to cover your gap, and sometimes maybe even more than enough, because you can always cut more if you're a little too long, but you can never add more to it unless you weld it. So we're going to cut about right here. And the reason I'm cutting right along the edge of this is because the rear end is still going to come forward like that, and that should be able to cover, to be able to slip inside. So there's our measurement. Now let's get to cutting. Well guys, I'm back underneath the truck trying to finish my straight pipe. I haven't been able to get to it because it snowed 2 days ago and the following day was cold as shit. And I finally have a nice day to get back on this. So this is what my setup looks currently. Starting over there. You guys seen that already? When I connected that piece. And then right there's the gap. That's where my flex connector is gonna go. And the other end pipe connecting to the rear end, which I'm about to start welding here in a bit. And my flex connector is gonna go right there. So yeah, pretty much after I finish welding that part on there, I'll connect my flex connector and we'll be good to go. So right here, I'm just gonna do some tack welds all around. There isn't any gap, so it doesn't really have to be sealed. So just a few spot welds will be just fine. Just have to be perfect. And the reason I don't record while I'm welding is because I don't want any slack to land on my phone and melt it. So I'm gonna get this welded and come back and finish my flex connector, and we should be good to go. So we're here at our final step. This is the moment of truth. I got the rear end pipe welded on to the rest of the rear end over there, and I went ahead and sprayed it with high temperature primer. Pretty solid. Now all we need to do is add our flex connector, and if you look closely, if I back up a little bit, you can kind of see how that's offset, and that's where our flex connector is going to come into play. So let's give this a try. You want to make sure you put your clamps on before putting in your flex connector, or else you're going to have a hard time putting them on when it's already on there. And we push this back, we got room to work with, and just connect it, and your flex connector will bend to however you want it. Make sure it's in far enough so that you can clamp it down. All right, there we go. Slide a clamp over.
For the front end.
Now, if you wanted to, and this is optional, you could get some aluminum tape and seal that around where the flex connector connects to the rest of your exhaust on both sides. But I'm just gonna leave mine like that. I don't want mine doesn't have to be perfect. And you want to come over here and tighten this down one last time. Remember to make sure you have an even gap on both sides. And that's it. Just give it a wiggle it around just to make sure nothing's loose. Everything seems pretty solid. Now we're finished on the bottom. Now we gotta go up to the top and see how it sounds. Alright guys, so I'm about to turn this on after doing the straight pipe. See what it sounds like. And I'm gonna record outside and inside of the truck, so you guys can get an idea of how it sounds outside and inside. So let's give this a shot. Fuck, my battery died. Okay guys, my shit died, but so I had to get a jump start. So now I'm ready to rock and roll.